Today on Keep Classical Weird, Dr. Sophia Tegart and I discuss the 2022 movie Tar. Please behold our unbelievably poignant first reactions.
My God. Yeah, that was quite a journey.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know what I was expecting, to be honest. So
That's fair.
Welcome, friends, to episode 70 of Keep Classical Weird. I am your host, Casey Bozell, and today we have another movie review episode for you. My good friend, Dr. Sophia Tegart, and I both watched the movie Tar, the 2022 release starring Cate Blanchett as conductor, composer, and confounding character, Lydia Tar. This turned out to be a complicated movie on a few levels, so I hope you can enjoy the discussion. And even though we mentioned this pretty early on in the discussion, I'm going to throw in a fair warning here. We are going to be spoiling absolutely everything about this movie. Enjoy.
If you even dive a little bit into the internet, you'll find this whole like treasure trove of think pieces on it.
yeah.
Just talking about how people reacted to it, how like other musicians reacted to it, how like non-musicians reacted to it just as a piece of film. I didn't find out anything about the making or the director or the writer or anything until after I saw it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do any research into that?
No, I halfway through the movie, I paused it and I just looked up the Wikipedia page because I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And so I found some interesting stuff, but I didn't really dive into it too much. So I sometimes have a habit of doing too much research and not letting myself be in the moment to watch. So I did like an itty bit of research midway through and then kept going.
Excellent. No, that's good. That's kind of similar to what I did. I was taking notes kind of partway through, but I didn't want to do too much. What I was told about it from friends and colleagues of mine is like, I'm not going to tell you too much about the film. Mm-hmm. And you should actually, it was one of those films, and I feel like a lot of them have this, where you can tell that the person that you're talking to was not a fan. And they're like, oh, well, I watched her. Have you seen it? Oh, you haven't? Okay, well, then I won't spoil anything. I'm like, well.
You already did.
You already did. But that's fine. It gets some actual plot points that were spoiled. But for everybody who is listening and watching right now, we are going to spoil a bunch of plot points because they should be thoroughly talked through, both in how they, I think, relate to our industry, especially at this moment. It's still very, very relevant. And how the movie was as a whole in terms of like representing, you know, what we do. Like when you and I did a late quartet, we found some inconsistencies with what our experiences have been as classical musicians, if I may put it so delicately.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't even know where to start. I guess we just start at the beginning.
Sure.
I felt like this film started with pretty slow.
Yes. Yeah. So this is kind of stupid, but I felt like it almost started like a Mahler symphony can start sometimes. Not Mahler 6, which opens with like bum 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 ba da dum, but like it had kind of a slow start before it finally picked up and you could kind of see where it was going, and then just like bang, crash, that kind of thing. So for me, the actual pacing of the film reminded me of some of the musical devices that Mahler uses when he starts with like a slow opening. So
wow,
that was kind of my interpretation of how it was so slow to start, you know, just like introducing one person and kind of where they're coming from, and then suddenly a little ways down the road, you kind of put this and this together. So for me, that's kind of, I don't know. It was a connection I made, and I was, in the moment, I was like, oh, Sophia, you're grasping at straws. But at the same time, I kind of like it.
I don't think you were. I think that's brilliant. Yeah. I thought it was, they spent so much of the film just painting who this person was. Mm-hmm. But they did that through these really very specific ways that that Tar interacts with other human beings. Like we have the interview, the New Yorker interview, I think it is at the beginning in front of the audience that goes over the breadth of her entire career. And then we have the lunch date and the class that she teaches at Juilliard. And they're so long of scenes, and it's such a one note way. It felt very academic how they were explaining the character to me rather than the later scenes where you learn a little bit more deeper about who she is as a person through her relationships with, her wife and her colleagues. So that was jarring.
Yeah. I think it was, the things that they showed where, she was doing the panel interview and then immediately going to lunch and then the Juilliard class. I feel like that does show the lifestyle of someone in that position where they have to put on many hats and do many things, and they're just going from one thing to the next. But yeah, it didn't have a lot of depth. It's almost like they were showing us that to show how people on the outside would actually perceive her,
Yes. Yeah. I thought for most of it, the way that she was kind of portraying herself as a conductor was pretty relatable and recognizable. Like there are traits, that she put herself forward on that I was like, oh, I get that, of just the utmost confidence and just the utmost overthinking of every detail of every little action, every little thing that she does, and she's clearly revered.
Yeah.
In her career for what she does. I am trying to look up a couple questions I had over the first part of it because I was like, well, these are questions for Sophia. I've heard the story before about Luli. Banging the thing and then getting gangrene because he stabbed himself in the foot. That's how he died.
Yep. Yeah. At least that's what the historical documents say. So, but yeah. It was interesting that she, with that story, she went to Luli specifically. There were other things that he did that I always, when I teach Luli specifically, I mention that he was conducting with the big staff and, the thing about how he died. But it was a different lens to look at him because I never really thought of him being the start of conducting or one of the early people. I remember he's the one who decided that the strings should have the same bowings. That's what I remember about Luli.
And that's a formative orchestral history right there. But that's the other thing too. Yeah, she credited him with the change of, a concertmaster leading an orchestra to a conductor leading an orchestra. And I was like, I didn't know that or believe that.
It was one of those things where in the moment I was like, no, that's not true. And then I was like, well, I never actually talk about the importance of the conductor. I talk about form and the symphony and the size of the symphony and how the orchestra is used and all this stuff. And then, so I'd have to do some more research into that whole topic.
Well, and that makes sense from where you're coming from. From your perspective as a professor of music history, you're not a conducting instructor.
No.
But that seems like somebody who is a conductor and would teach conducting
Yeah,
would go to
yeah.
immediately. Yeah.
I think it's a part that I should probably start incorporating, though. I mean, that is an important part of the development of the orchestra. So, yeah, I feel like, I don't know, it's rare when a Hollywood movie teaches me something or makes me think of my career in a different way.
Suspicious, no?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Makes you very suspicious of their intention.
know.
Speaking of, I still haven't looked up this piece, but they were talking about in her lunch conversation the ending of What Love Teaches Me by Mahler. And that's where he was the fellow she was talking to is begging to see her performance score. And then she says, like, oh, the secret is let the strings do free bowing.
Yeah.
Because the sound is incredible. It doesn't look that great. And I'm like, that wouldn't work. But I, as a violinist, I'm like, there are certain places where free bowing makes sense. However, when you're trying to create a unified sound, it's usually not that.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to that saying, at least that we have in the band world, where you're going to sound louder if things are unified. Like, you know, if pitch is spot on, you can play it mezzo forte, and if everyone's perfectly in tune, it'll just sound louder.
Sure.
So, yeah, I found that comment very strange. I was like, ooh, really? Free bowing there? But I don't know.
I do too. But he was eating it up. So I don't know if that was just to like put it out there to again like kind of teach us about her character through just like a laundry list of what she does and how she's revered. Her next big long scene of that is when she's at Juilliard.
Oh yeah.
Whoo, teaching this conducting class.
Oh yeah.
This was a fascinating conversation.
That was an intense scene. I was so conflicted in that scene. Throughout the whole movie, I was conflicted throughout the whole movie for so many reasons. But yeah, that scene was, I don't know. I mean, there's just, you know, as I'm sure you have experienced this, you know, there's so many hats that we've put on as musicians in the past and now. Like, I've been the student in a master class. I've had that interaction with someone who is, you know, giving a master class, and I wasn't really sure I agreed with what they said, or I've also been the person who's giving the master class, or been the spectator who's just watching an uncomfortable master class. So there were so many things. I felt like my body was like, or my brain and my soul were like shifting out of my body and entering into each one of those characters. That scene was rough.
That was really rough. It's the basic concept of it is that she's coaching specifically. I think I can't remember if they identify as non-binary because I think they said they were pangender.
Yeah, I think at the end. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so this brown-skinned pangender individual who's conducting at the moment, and they have chosen to conduct a new piece of music by an Icelandic composer that
Lydia Tarr clearly does not like.
It's very obvious from the get-go that she's like,
yeah.
oh, well, of course, you're a violinist. You would love to conduct something that just sounds like strings tuning. And clearly the piece is more nuanced than that, but she just dismisses it. She puts herself very much in the role. Well, okay, I'll go ahead and throw this out at this point in the conversation. A lot of the stuff that she says in that class, I don't associate my female or female presenting mentors in the past to have said in my own experience.
Absolutely not. She is, yeah, I don't know if this is giving away the whole concept a little early, but in the interview with, was it the New Yorker at the beginning?
I think so.
Where he asked her a question about gender or like how her gender has maybe, you know, like, has she had any problems with it? And she's like, no, that's ridiculous, you know, and she presents herself in a certain way. She gets to Juilliard, she says things that I didn't really see her as being authentic with that. I felt like, in a way, she was parroting her male mentors from before. I just can't imagine a woman saying, oh, especially in a male-dominated field, oh yeah, there's never been any issue, and
right.
I just can't imagine that. And then, so the things she said at the Juilliard school class, I was taken aback. I was like, wow, this is not, like you said, I've never heard a female mentor from the music world ever say anything like that before.
No, because essentially what she's saying in this scene is immediately invalidating of the lived experiences of the students within it.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Which you and I are no stranger to people doing that to us. But I cannot think of a single female mentor who hasn't validated my own experience in this career. And so that was a disconnect that remained with me through the whole movie. Is
agreed.
Anytime I've worked with a female conductor on the podium, I get so excited because I know they're going to be super prepared. They're going to have put all of this work because they've had to get noticed ahead of any of their male colleagues.
Yeah, they have to do more to be equal.
Yes. Yeah, and that's just, I mean, I wish that wasn't objectively true, but I think that's just objectively true.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I know. That scene was so tricky. And like the problem with her character was she's able to make points in how she says things and express certain opinions that you can almost get on board with ideas, like, I can understand why she would say, don't discount Bach just because he's an old white dude, Yeah. But she also then, in just like completely trounced on this character's ideas and personal, experiences. So, wow. I mean, what a complex character. That's for sure.
Yeah, it did seem like there was, it was a lot of the language that I've seen male performers use, but it was in this
coming out of a woman's body.
Yes.
Yeah. I know.
So, and again, I had told you before, I didn't look up anything about the writer or director until after, and I was like, oh, the writer and director is named Todd Field.
Okay.
And so that also complicates it more. I don't know if I appreciate that more or less.
Yeah.
Now that I know it's this person named Todd Field who created this.
Yeah.
This person and this world. And then we get kind of a home life situation.
Yes.
For Tar. Then we learn Lydia Tar is the conductor at the Berlin Phil. And her wife is the concertmaster of the Berlin Phil.
Which is not a thing. Like, has there ever been a female concertmaster at Berlin Phil?
There has never been a female concertmaster at the Berlin Phil. I don't believe so. I think...
Gonna cut in here. I'm so happy to report that we were wrong. In April of 2023, the Berlin Phil appointed its first ever female concertmaster, Latvian violinist Vineta Sareka. The somehow apt postlude to this story is, of course, that she announced a little over a week ago from when this episode drops that she plans to step down later this season, making her total concertmaster tenure just shy of 2 years.
I wrote down we didn't see her conduct until minute 59 of the film. Oh. It took that long to actually see her conduct, which I thought was fascinating. Because again, that's another, and we missed a huge plot point here. There's a big scene of the cello audition.
Oh, yeah. Checking out the shoes in the stall.
Like, how many violations? Okay, so here's what happens is that first of all, she shows up late. You could maybe make an argument that the music director does not have to show up until the final round of an audition.
Okay. Sure.
Although when she walked in, they said, "Oh, Maestro, we didn't know if you were even coming." I'm like, you can't decide on the cellist unless the music director's there. That's part of the agreement. But okay, glad she showed up. But before she came into the room, she went and she used the bathroom and saw someone who, she didn't recognize in the hall, and she knew there was a cello audition going on. So, obviously that was probably a candidate.
Yeah.
I don't know who the proctor was that was not putting them in separate areas of the building or separate bathrooms. Like, that's a huge... That's a huge conflict of interest right there.
Agreed.
And then when she sees her, she takes a minute and checks out of the stall to see what type of shoes she's wearing. They get to the final cellist, and then you hear the clack, clack, clack of the shoes enter. There's specifically... And again, in speaking to your, women in the Berlin Phil, the reason that we have better gender equity now is because we put freaking carpets on the floor.
Yeah.
So that you can't hear what types of shoes the candidates are wearing.
Agreed. Yeah, that's like one of those stories that you learn really early on in your education about how when you take an audition, if there isn't carpet, you take your shoes off and you walk without shoes, so they can't hear if it's a clack, 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 or a thump, 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 because clack, 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 women's shoes, thump, 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 probably men. So yeah, I mean, I agree. There was no carpet there. And also you could peek, like there was a little bit of space where you could see her walking with those shoes specifically.
Yep.
And I was like, that seems like an issue.
Why didn't they keep that? Because the curtains went all the way to the floor on the stage. So clearly they had the technology. Yeah, I know. That was interesting. I mean, it's funny though, like a lot of the things that were happening in this movie would point to things that, we've learned of in the past, or I don't know. It's like when the shoe thing happened, I was like, oh no, that's not okay. No,
I don't think people who haven't been in the music business would know that there have been safeguards to prevent this.
Right.
So for us, it's a very telling moment in the movie.
Yes. I don't know how CBAs and unions work in Berlin, but the whole time I was like, where is the union steward on this audition?
Yeah. Well,
that would never happen.
And there must be some strict things to it, because when Lydia actually tries to get rid of the other conductor, she says, oh, they have much stricter rules, and like there's, like even must be the players committee clarinet guy.
Yeah.
Was like, oh, you can't just remove him. We need to vote. And she's like, no, I can remove him. So like, there are rules. I don't know what they are, like you said, for Berlin.
Another thing that I think was done really well in this movie is that obviously, just like any classical music movie, people have to be trained to play.
Yes.
Now, I could see that the actress who played the concertmaster, I'm going to look up her name because I wrote it down, Nina Haas. She played Sharon, who was the concertmaster of the Berlin Phil. I actually thought her... like, not even faking, she was clearly taught how to play these very specific passages.
Yeah.
On the violin. She had the right finger down at the right time.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Super cool.
That's exciting. The one thing I looked up was about the girl who plays, the woman who plays the cellist, and she actually trained at the Royal Conservatory in London.
Yeah.
And so I also read, and again, this is on the Wikipedia page, so
Right.
I don't know, but like the diegetic music, so the music that's actually happening in the scene that the characters can hear, they were strict about having the people actually playing it. So like when she did her playing of the Elgar, she was actually playing it.
Wow.
And when Kate Blanchett was even just that little Bach piece when she was doing the Juilliard school class, she was actually playing it.
That's really impressive.
I know. I mean, I don't know what her technique is like piano wise, but I mean, I was very impressed with that in general. I thought that was really impressive, especially after thinking about the Lake Quartet.
It's very true, right? That was not nearly
Yeah.
as much of a priority. And that's knowing that was like Kate Blanchett playing that in that class too, is really impressive, because I think it was like one single shot for a long time where she was sitting down playing Bach, talking about Bach, and then she gets up and stands up and paces around the room. And I was like, how long has it been since they panned away from her? Like, she had a really, really impressive monologue with lots of business to do, including playing some freaking Bach on the piano.
Yeah. But you know what? I gotta say, like, that's why Kate Blanchett is so stinking amazing. Like, she's one of those actresses that I have so much respect for her, just on all levels. I mean, she can play, she can be Lydia Tarr in this movie. She can be, oh my gosh, they're going to revoke my Lord of the Rings card, but Galadriel, right? No. Right. Yes. No. Yes. Yes. And then she can also be one of the, the criminal people in Ocean's 8. Like, the breadth of her ability, I don't know. I'm just so impressed. And I always thought she was amazing. But there's something about this film in particular. I just was kind of floored by her performance in general.
I agree.
So,
yes. It was
so
really
amazing.
It was at times confusing, but it was compelling, and like it kept me like there was a recognizable thread of who she was.
Sorry.
Throughout.
My cat Gustav Meowler is currently biting my ankle.
Oh my gosh, he knows this is sort of about him.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
that hurt. I almost screamed. I apologize.
That's okay. Are you okay?
Yep. He's just
little ankle biter.
Yeah.
Freaking
sorry.
Sorry. No, you're good.
Yeah.
You're totally good. He's like, you haven't mentioned me yet, and this film talks about Mahler 5, so why did you?
I know.
Sorry, Gustav. Now we've kind of got into Olive Tarr's work life. There is a thriller kind of haunted aspect of the film as well, which all of these notes I wrote down, I wasn't able to organize these particularly well, because I'm like, what do you focus on first in this film? So
I know.
So Tarr is established that she's started this foundation that can really help propel female and non-binary conductors towards the forefront. Although in her lunch conversation, she's like, I'm not that interested. We made our point. Like, female conductors are fine. It's like, no, they're not. But we're not at an equal point, but that's her.
Right.
That's her take in the film. But she has this foundation. She has a couple students that she's that are referenced in the film that have supposedly like kind of graduated through this thing. One is her assistant Francesca, who she's obviously very fond of, and she thinks very highly of, and has followed her around. Gets everything ready for her. Is pretty obsessed with who she is. And then another one is this woman named Krista Taylor, who's referenced several times in the film. And then we learn like halfway through the film that she has committed suicide.
Yeah.
And it's only after that we see that Tarr has stopped Krista Taylor from getting jobs with all of these major postings. She's obviously like asked for recommendations, and posting after posting, she will say like, I'm sorry, I can't recommend her. She has lots of issues.
For a character who you don't ever truly meet on screen, I had the most empathy for Krista. Like, I can't even imagine how detrimental the loss of a mentor or just the separation from a mentor like that could be on someone's career, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. Oh my gosh, I know. Talk about retaliation from someone, you know, more powerful than you. That's just awful.
Yes.
Awful.
Yeah. And it's hinted at. I'm not sure we ever get like concrete proof of anything, which is very parallel to, you know, what we see in our.
Yes, you mean like between like a sexual relationship between
Correct.
those two?
Yes.
Yeah. The only thing that I think really finalizes that, or even hints towards it, is when Tar is hallucinating, and she's like hallucinating about Krista, and they're kind of wrapped in a sensual position, but then it looks like Krista's gonna maybe break her neck or something.
Yes.
So it like shifts the mood of the hallucination. So
yes,
that was the only thing that really like hinted at that. So yeah.
Yes, and the hallucinations go far. They're little, you know, they're little noises that she hears through the day. There's one night where her metronome is going.
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught this reference. I actually wasn't able to look into this either. I couldn't find stuff about it. That she's at one point sent a book.
Oh yeah, the Challenger. I looked it up.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I did. It had something to do with like power dynamics. The book is a novel, and it has something to do with power dynamics between two people and like the separation. So, I wish I knew more about the actual novel. I just like read about it. I was more interested in the geometric pattern that was being drawn everywhere. And this is what happens when you look stuff up at night and then you have a full day of teaching, and then you have to do a podcast, and now I can't remember, but the geometric shapes are they come from the tribe in Peru that she was talking about in the New Yorker interview.
Oh, that's all related. Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
and I think, and I meant to go back and look at it, but the word that she said that Lenny, you know, embodied when he, and she used a word, and it's a word that's associated with this tribe as well.
Kavana or Kavana.
Yeah.
Because he makes a joke in it of like Kavana has different connotations for this. You know, liberal audience here today. But it's a Hebrew word, Kavana.
Yes. But there's also like a term. I feel like it's also related to the geometric, like the meaning of it parallels something that was associated with this tribe as well. I don't know. There was a lot of connections between that. I'm not gonna lie. I usually am really. I can get into some obscure references and really kind of get nerdy about it.
Yeah.
Quite a few of them were lost on me in this movie. I did feel a little stupid at the end of the movie.
Did it? Okay, well, let me ask you this. Did you feel like it tried to do too much?
Yes, absolutely. So many things, so many different layers and levels of, I mean, there's the connection between the Peru and lacing it through and the geometric shapes, and then the hallucinations, and then the Challenger book, and, you know, then there's like the weird gender dynamics and reversals that are happening, and the abuse of power, and like there was so much in it. I feel like they could have probably dropped the psychological thriller part of it.
Right.
And it might have been more effective.
That's what I thought too, because is it a psychological thriller? Is it a commentary on gender dynamics? Is it a fictional biopic? You know, like, what are you?
Yeah. And maybe, I mean, again, like, maybe those different layers are there to be complex and to show that, like, the character herself, Lydia Tarr, has many layers and so many different aspects of her personality that are affected by, you know, different times in her past. And I don't know. I mean, I felt like the movie was as complex as the character, you know?
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, gosh, I don't even know where to go with the plot. Let's see. The cellist gets the job. They're in the middle of this big recording of Mahler 5. And she takes the, you know, young female cellist out to lunch and learns that she played the Elgar Concerto. Like, that was her, hearing Jacqueline Dupre you play it was her inspiration to become a cellist. And she sends her, like, youth orchestra recording to Lydia Tarr. And so then Lydia, again, this wouldn't happen. Where was the union steward? But whatever. She says, you know, I think as the companion piece to Mahler 5, I think we should do the Elgar Cello Concerto. And she turns to the principal cellist and she goes, you know, normally this would be you that I give the solo to, but you're so busy, basically. Like, how are you? You're gonna have your focus into, which also, like, again, the principal cellist is a woman. This is like, she's talking down to her.
Yeah.
From the podium. And so she suggests they hold auditions.
Yeah. That was unbelievable. That
literally.
Part. I don't know. I mean, the thought of pulling a soloist from the section over the principal, no. Like,
that doesn't happen.
Never. And
No.
like, I mean, I think the rest of the cello section, except for that one Martin guy, what a jerk, right?
Oh my gosh, Martin, calm down.
Yeah, they all were like, absolutely not. It should be this principal player. We're not auditioning, you know, and that's what should have happened. No one should have auditioned. I'm glad Martin didn't get it.
Right.
But at the same time,
that shouldn't have been the situation.
And then this young girl auditioned for it, which she's a little naive. You know, of course she's going to do it. She doesn't understand what she's actually, you know, doing.
Right.
With regards to the health of the section. But also, I don't know, this was not alluded to at all. Well, towards the end maybe. But part of me was like, I wonder if this female cellist was in it with Francesca the whole time. Like, I wonder if Francesca was setting Lydia up the whole time. That's like the conspiracy theorist in me. But that would have made it kind of an awesome film. Like, had this been kind of like a setup, you know, like, oh, here's this new girl. Let's see if, you know, the conductor goes for her and then we can latch.
Yeah.
Sue. Yeah.
That's a possibility.
That would have been a different film. I'm surprised they didn't pursue that as well. I mean, they were doing everything.
They did everything. Yeah, they pursued every plot line is the thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So it happens so that in tandem, moving towards this recording and they get closer to the date of the recording, and then her assistant Francesca, who has been passed up for this assistant conductor job at
another
the Berlin
subplot.
Film.
Yeah.
Yet another subplot, which is why we're just throwing these in.
Yeah.
She's passed over, so she quits, and she then hands over all of this evidence of Lydia Tarr actively stopping Krista Taylor from advancing in her career, which eventually leads to her suicide. She hands all that evidence over, and all of a sudden, a whole bunch of allegations come out.
Yeah.
About Lydia Tarr grooming young women. Again, that's not to say that it's never happened, but that's women in power are not the problem in our industry.
Yeah, I think at the heart of the film, my biggest problem with it was portraying the classical world as having all these women who were in powerful positions, who were, taking advantage of other young women, or I mean, maybe it was the intention of the writer and the director to really mess with your brain with gender roles and gender perceptions. But I just had a hard time about it. I think what it boiled down to was, I was like, oh, great, we finally have a movie about a woman conductor, and this is what it's about.
That's absolutely true. People contacted Marin Alsop about this. Probably, that's one of the first female conductors that I think of. And
yeah, absolutely.
She said, Tar offends me as a conductor, as a woman, and as a lesbian.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there were so many stereotypes that this character was playing. I don't know. Again, I think the reason why I'm so upset about it is because, of course, Cate Blanchett did such an amazing job at all of the things with this character that it actually made me angrier in a way. Had it been any other actress who would not have done as good of a job, I feel like I wouldn't have even noticed some of these things. But yeah, there were some real issues. I was wondering what Marin Alsop would have thought about this. And I mean, they reference her, at the beginning of the film, when Lydia Tarr is like, oh, Marin Alsop hasn't had to deal with this at all. And I was like,
she shouldn't complain about anything, or actually, I wonder if she'd disagree with that.
I feel like I've heard about Marin Alsop having to deal with this stuff. So I don't know. It makes me, it reaffirms my, my own perception of the film. Hearing that Marin Alsop doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, kind of circling back to that statement about how, when people have seen the movie and they kind of spoil it for you because of their attitude towards it.
Yeah.
I had several people tell me that they liked the film a lot. They thought it was really great. They were all men.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
It was fascinating because sitting there watching this as a woman, I was uncomfortable. I was conflicted. I can admit that it is a fascinating concept, a fascinating film, great acting.
Yes.
Amazingly well done with regards to music and
production
and a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And portraying the industry to a certain extent, I think it's pretty accurate. I think the biggest issue is the gender aspect of it. It just kind of nullifies everything for me.
It does, and I could see where, well, part of me thinks if you made a film about a great male conductor who had this, kind of same career trajectory and then got taken down at the end because of, it makes me think that the reaction from male viewers would be anger.
Yeah.
And libel suits. And, I don't, which I think that narrative would be really relatable. But at this moment in time, we have, real time things going on right now in classical music that revolve
Absolutely.
around exactly this. And so there's, there's a lot to be said about it, but I resonated with what you said earlier of like, oh, we get a movie about a female conductor.
Yeah.
And then she does this.
Yeah.
It's this one.
Yeah.
I will say, before we get into her actual downfall, we haven't
Yes.
even brought up her relationship with their daughter,
Oh, Petra.
Petra.
Yes. Yeah.
I actually was into Petra has a problem with bullying at school by this girl, Johanna. And Lydia takes Petra to school and says, "Where's Johanna? Let me talk to her." And she introduces herself and she says, "I'm Petra's father," which I think was just a great, way of like, and I will find you if you do this again to her, and you can't tell any grown-ups about it because I'm a grown-up and I'll know. Like, terrorizes this young child because of her protectiveness.
Yeah.
of Petra.
Yes, absolutely. I also saw it as a massive red flag. I was like, this woman spots someone who has no power and just goes in and goes for the kill and knows that she can get away with it.
Yeah.
And she does.
And she does.
And okay, yes, obviously Johanna is a bully and needs to knock it off. Poor Petra,
Oh my God.
Yeah, adorable.
Yes.
But my God, again, I was conflicted. It was like part of me was like, yeah, and then I was like, that Johanna is also a child.
She is.
Oh my God.
You don't
So-
you don't solve those by threatening a child. Now, I will say, if I heard someone was, kicking my daughter in the shins at school, that's what I would want to do.
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly what Tar did.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, because of exactly that thought process of, okay, that's also a child. I need to deal with that differently. That's my gut instinct, and perhaps that's where Tar differs from the rest of us, is that she has a gut instinct and just runs with it because there's very little telling her not to.
Yeah. Well, and she has the power to just go for it. I think that's the other thing. It's like, I mean, what would we do if we had the power to do, essentially anything we wanted? I mean, it's just a question of, I guess the strength of the inner character to keep us from just doing whatever we think is okay.
Right? It's frightening. You'd like to think that you'd always make the right decision in any circumstance, but without being in the circumstance, that's very hard to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you always think you're going to do the right thing. But would you? I don't know. There's so many parts to that.
So this is also an ethical dilemma film. We can add that to the list.
Yeah, it's about ethics.
Oh my God. Tar's accusations catch up with her. The recording of Gustav's Fifth Symphony is done by a different conductor, by the same conductor who asked her about her bowings in the lunch interview early on in the film. She is so mad about this development that during the first few bars, she storms on stage and attacks him.
Yeah, right after the trumpet solo.
Right after the offstage trumpet solo.
But also, when that happened, I was like, oh, is this another hallucination? But it was real.
That was real.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh my God. That was bonkers. And then that was another problem I had. I was like, of course it's the woman who can't handle the pressure and goes bonkers at the end and attacks someone. I was like, what does that say?
Right? It doesn't help. Doesn't help at all. It doesn't help the narrative at all.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yes, it adds to the conflict. It adds to the internal conflict of the film. She finds her next job. I'm unsure as to where. My subtitles said that people were speaking Tagalog.
Would they be in Singapore?
Maybe they'd be in Singapore. That's a possibility. but the way the film closes is she's conducting a performance to a film, it seems, and I looked it up later. It's apparently a video game music concert, which is another like less so conflicting for me. It's not on the level of like gender conflicting, but I'm like, video game music concerts are great, and they're
awesome.
They bring in audiences, and they're so good. But this is clearly like put together as a sort of downgrade, massive downgrade for her.
It's a downgrade for her, absolutely. Yeah. So then I was like, okay, so are they implying that music is lesser, and so she's there, or is the implication that she sees it as lesser?
Right.
Because I don't get that partially because she approached it, the first rehearsal, she said, let's talk about the composer's intent. So she's taking it seriously.
Very seriously.
Which implies to me that it was a Hollywood trick to show, oh, look how far she's fallen. She's conducting video game music with cosplay people in the audience in Asia. Like the level of like, oh, look at how horrible this is. First of all, there are so many amazing musicians in Asia.
Yep.
And the orchestral scene over there is phenomenal. So for someone in Hollywood to imply potentially that is less than the Western society, I find that very offensive. I find it offensive that they would say that video game music is so much lesser, because like you said, video game music is awesome. I know that I have the most fun when I'm playing film score, like live film score movies.
Absolutely.
Who doesn't love playing Harry Potter live?
Yeah.
Who does? I also played The Princess Bride a while back. Super fun.
Nice.
Score's not so great, but the movie. Come on.
Right, but
So,
you're like a part of the movie that way, and also it was a sold out crowd she was playing to.
Oh, absolutely. Like that's the thing. It's like in a way this is making her more connected to the people who actually are consuming the music. And I don't see that as a downgrade at all. Do I like Mahler 5 and love it? Absolutely. I think it's amazing. Do I love, video game music? Heck yeah.
Yeah.
That stuff is fun. And I don't know. I had a real problem with the ending of it. I understand what they were implying, and like, I was a little appalled by that. There was a third part of it that I was also irritated by, but at this point it doesn't really matter. I don't know.
Which was it?
I can't remember. I mean, I listed it a few minutes ago. I was like 1, 2, 3, and now I can't remember the third one. But mostly because I was so angry about the fact that it was implying that Asia is a step down.
Right.
I was, as someone who has toured in Asia and seen the musical scenes there, it is very impressive. Ugh.
It's a condescending way,
yes,
to end the film.
I think it's, dare I say, a little racist too. Like,
I think you dare say I think it's true.
I don't know.
Yeah, like, oh, it's because you're saying it's a downgrade to go from the Western world to the Eastern world. That's what they were implying. Yeah,
that is at the heart of it. Part of that.
I think I'm with you in my, ultimate evaluation of it, which is that you can't say if it's necessarily a good movie or a bad movie. I think if I was to sum it up in an unnuanced way, I would say it's a poor message that was conveyed immaculately.
I think that is exactly the best way you can say it. I think you hit the nail on the head with that, because I think it sends a very poor message in general, and I think the quality of the film and how it was actually produced and all this stuff was very high quality. And yeah,
I'm I would love to see a day where a female conductor film is more of a slice of life narrative that shows, what she does and the heights she can achieve, and perhaps the misrepresentation within the industry that she's trying to stop, that she's trying to correct. I don't think that film's been made yet.
Yeah. I think this movie kind of shows the cycle of abuse in a way. Like, Lydia had to assume a more masculine persona to become who she was within this field. And as part of that role, she also took on some of the things that accompany like that with the abuse of power. And I think that's I think that's what to me that's what it seems like. In order to succeed, she had to adapt and become like her other male counterparts in that field. And as part of that, she started using her power in similar ways.
Yeah. Yep.
And again, I just don't think that would happen.
No, I'm in agreement with you. It's yes, I don't see those sort of actions happening out of that sort of body. However, Cate Blanchett, being the wizard that she is, made it a completely believable character.
Yeah.
And that's why I think we're both just sitting uncomfortably with
the
whole thing.
Yeah. And it's so fascinating. Actually, I like thinking back to those opening 3 scenes. She's presented in a way that you're like, oh, she's just, a very powerful woman, and I love this. And then she says that one thing about, no, I've never been, discriminated against. And like, no one would say that. That's ridiculous. That was like, whoa, what? And then the lunch thing where she's like, the women, let's open it up to men. Like, women don't need this extra,
right
thing. And I was like, what is going on? But at the same time, everything around it, you're kind of like, oh no, she's cool. Like, I like her. And then you get to the scene with the Juilliard school and the masterclass, and you can almost buy into everything she's saying. And then she really just destroys this kid, right? And like, and the way she says it, I'm like, oh my God, that is so awful, and kind of so accurate. Sometimes you have those master classes where the person giving the master class is just, for lack of a better word, kind of an ass, So like,
we've all had that experience. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so like, you almost just chalk it up to, oh God, okay, here's another one, that's like, ugh, but oh my God. And then, so like every time I almost was like, no, I kind of like her. She would do something like the kid, Johanna, suddenly, threatening her. And then there's always that little thing that makes you uncomfortable about the character, which I think is probably accurate about anyone in that position. There's always those little red flags, right?
Yeah.
I'm just used to seeing them in men.
I know, because that's who we see. I can corroborate your experience.
It's bonkers.
Precisely.
It's bonkers.
Oh my gosh.
And that's our show for today. Do you have thoughts about Tar like we do? You should definitely reach out over one of our many social media channels or via email at keepclassicalweird@gmail.com. Our theme music is composed by not dead composer Thomas Barber. Check out more of his stuff at thomasbarber.com. Web development support is provided by Tina at citybeautifuldesign.com. Keep Classical Weird is created and edited by me, Casey Bozell. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our new YouTube page. Thank you so much for downloading, everybody. Stay safe and stay weird.